And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, mom and dad, boys and girls, to the 15th annual Mobile Street Renaissance Festival. We just finished with the unveiling of the historic marker. It's at 6th and Mobile. It was absolutely incredible. You know what was incredible about it? Some of the people from the men that tried to get their voting rights in 1950, some of their family members were there. You missed a violin solo, you missed a saxophone solo, and some great vocalists and speakers. We're going to continue with today's program, though, right now. We're getting ready for, and let me tell you what's on the way, by the way. Coming up, after this particular forum, we've got a lot of political campaigns. We've got Living Tobacco Free with Denisha O'Quinn and Taking Our Rights Back. That was the monument we just had, taking our rightful place in history. That monument is at 6th and Mobile. My name is Edgar Champagne. On the way right now, we're going to do, for the next 50 minutes, a voter info with the NAACP featuring Dr. Wesley. He's going to be the moderator. So without further ado, this is Dr. Wesley.
Welcome to this opportunity to share with our community the importance of civil engagement in fostering the efficacy of strategies to create strong families, strong government, and strong communities. This panel represents a diversity of personal and career life experiences, uniting the voice concerned for many about the integrity of our democracy and our future as a nation. I'm going to ask the panel if they will identify themselves, and then we'll get started.
My name is Anastasia Doctor.
Hi, I'm Clarence McGee, President of Force County Branch NAACP, largest branch in the state.
And I am Peg Seraldo. I am president of the League of Women Voters Pine Belt. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Dishman.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom O'Brien. I'm a member of the NAACP and a professor at the University of Southern Mississippi.
All right, our session will begin. We will conduct this information forum in a round robin format. Please be prepared to speak for approximately 3 minutes on your respective topics through the questions posed by the moderator. Each panelist will have question number one, then we will make a round, and then we'll have question number two, and then we'll go around again. And so the first question goes to Mr. McGee. What is the history of the NAACP and its involvement with voter rights?
Thank you for the question. In 1908, a declaration throughout the city of Springfield, the capital of Illinois, the resting place for President Abraham Lincoln. Such insurrection, and anti-black violence, particular lynching, were horrifically commonplace in the Springfield riot. Thank you. In the Springfield riot, which was the tipping point that led into the creation of the NAACP. Our mission is to secure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of all rights in order to eliminate race-based discrimination and ensure the health and well-being of all people. The NAACP played a pivotal role in the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. One of the organizational key victory was the U.S. Supreme Court 1954 decision in Brown versus Board of Christian Education outlawed segregation in public school, March 13, 20. Anyway, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People challenged racial inequity largely by publicizing and targeting legal challenges. Program initially dedicated to the fact that the minority of African Americans lived in the South were direct protests against by Jim Crow or laws and dangers to them. Such tactics sometimes discourage grassroots activism by polarizing the leadership role, the national staff. Yet the NAACP proved successful in winning some of the most important battles, such as overturning the grandfather clause of 1915 of resident segregation order. I'll pause at that point.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Ms. Peggy Serrano, what is the history of the League of Women Voters? We have a partnership with the League of Women Voters. Will you give us that history now?
I will give you the history of the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is celebrating their 100th anniversary this year, as well as the League of Women Voters Pine Belt. It's also the 100-year celebration of women's suffrage. In 1848, women began discussing the fact that maybe they should have the right to vote, because they did not have the right before 1848. Then it worked on it, fought for it, and in 1878, they started litigating for it and fighting harder for it. But it took them another 41 years in 1920 to finally get the 19th Amendment passed. And the 19th Amendment reads, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex." The League of Women Voters, of which I belong to, and proud to belong to it, began working on improving women's rights at that time. They encouraged women to, and men, citizens of the states, to register to vote. We cannot move without all of us registering to vote and getting out the vote. And finally, they also worked so hard on getting the issues out before our citizens so that we know what we're voting on. The downside of, and I am finding throughout our history of the League of Women Voters, the 19th Amendment, it passed in 1920, but it was not passed for Black women and other minority groups. There were other obstacles put up by the um, government to make sure that they couldn't vote. It took until the Civil Rights Act of 1964 for them to be able to get the right to vote.
Okay, thank you. Now, Anastasia, what are the state's voter ID requirements? We know that that creates a lot of problems when a person is trying to vote on November. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Individuals voting at the polls are required to show a photo ID. Individuals voting in person by absentee ballot inside the circuit clerk's office are also required to show a photo ID. These are the acceptable photo IDs: a driver's license, a photo ID used by a branch, department, or entity of the state of Mississippi, the United States passport, a government employee ID, a firearms license, a student ID issued by an accredited Mississippi university, college, or community or junior college, a United States military ID, a tribal photo ID, and any other photo ID issued by any branch, department, agency, or entity of the United States government or any state government, a Mississippi voter identification card. In regards to expired IDs, the expired ID must contain the name and photograph of the voter and have been validly issued by the federal or state government, and it is not more than 10 years old. In regard to who's exempt from voter ID, voters who vote an absentee ballot by mail, fax, or email, voters with religious objections to being photographed, any registered voter who resides, at a state licensed care facility and who votes in person at a polling place located in a state licensed care facility. Also, if you do not have a license, because just like you said, voter ID license cause issues when we're dealing with minorities and low income in regards to the underlying costs that they have to, as far as driving to get the ID, the documents that they have to get the ID, but they also can get a free Mississippi voter identification card. And so any eligible voter who does not have any of the acceptable forms of photo ID that I just spoke of qualifies for a free Mississippi voter identification card.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Now that we've identified what's required to vote, what about the procedure? How do you register to vote? We have 2 more days left before you can still register. LaShondra, how do we register to vote in Mississippi?
Good afternoon, Sean Dishman again. So there are 2 ways to register to vote here in our great state of Mississippi. So number 1, we have by mail vote. So keep in mind that the deadline is on Monday, October 5th. So you want to make sure that you go ahead and get that done ASAP. It's very simple. You can go online, find your voter registration form, print that off, complete it, and then mail it to your local election office. Of course, make sure that that postmark is dated by October 5th. Second, you can do an in-person vote. So if you elect to do in-person, you'll just contact your local election office. They'll tell you where to register, and make sure that you do this by Monday, October 5th, no later than 12 o'clock.
All right, thank you. Now that we know how to register, there is one part of registration that has to do with absentee ballot. We're going to ask Dr. Tom O'Brien. Would you explain to us how the absentee ballot works?
Yes, absentee voting is voting, but it's not voting on election day. Once you are registered, as we just heard, you can cast an absentee vote by mail, but you must first get an absentee vote application. Now, to do this, you need to call your local clerk's office. Everybody on this panel here has a slip that gives the name of the local clerk here. Her name is Gwen Wilkes. And we also have an even easier way to do this, and that would be by going to a website. We also have that for you on our little handout too. The advantage to if you can get to a computer is that you can register for absentee voting immediately, and you'll be sent a ballot. Okay. There is no deadline on submitting the ballot once you've got it, but there is a recommendation that you fill it out carefully and that you mail it at least 7 days ahead of time to make sure it does get counted. Thank you, Dr. Wesley.
Okay, we know that there are obstacles that's in place and put in place that prevents especially minorities from voting. Mr. McGee, what is voter suppression and how is it being used to suppress votes, especially for minorities?
Voter suppression, there are about 3 dozen tactics used to deny people from voting, especially people of color. Misinformation is one of the ways of voter suppression. Relocating voting places prior to the election, confusing people as to where they may vote. People has compelling charges against not knowing which one that disqualify them or not disqualify them is another way of doing that. Polling places consolidated so that where you normally vote, you got to cross one voting precinct to get to one that you're currently assigned to. Inadequate number of voting machines that don't work, are broken down. Policing at the voting place as a form of intimidation. Voter applicants being challenged when they go to vote. Absentee ballots is delayed in getting out to those who request them so that they can return them in a way that we get them processed. Refusing to polling site on college campus, excessively purging the voter roll, student restriction to residents. There are a number of others that we won't get into right now, but there are at least 2 dozen methods used to deter people from going to the polls and casting their votes.
All right, thank you, Mr. McGee. Once you get the ballot, it's a good idea to look at a sample ballot before you vote. They are voting for a presidential office on the ballot, but the users of the ballot have initiatives on it. And so I've asked Ms. Peggy Serrato if she will go on, explain some of the initiatives that's on the ballot this fall. They will affect you locally and statewide. So would you explain from the ballot, those initiatives that's on the Mississippi ballot?
I would be glad to. I don't know if everyone knows this, and I will tell you that I'm learning every day, even my old age, but if you need a sample ballot, which is important to look at before you go to vote, it's on the Secretary of State website, and you can read what is going to be on your ballot. And one of the initiatives you're going to read, and when I first read it, I thought, what are they talking about? And it goes to medical marijuana, and it states under initiative measure, and when you read it, you'll see why it's a little perplexing. It states initiative measure number 65, and it's a constitutional amendment. And it states, should Mississippi allow qualified patients with debilitating medical conditions as certified by Mississippi licensed physicians to use medical marijuana? Okay, you read that and you think, well, that's an idea. And what it includes is there are 22 conditions that will qualify for medical marijuana that's only given to you by a licensed physician. Second of all, the dosage of which you are able to receive is included in this initiative. Also in this initiative, it includes that no marijuana treatment center can be located within 500 feet of a school, church, or child care center. And if you do use this marijuana and you have a licensed physician giving it to you, no criminal charges can be used against you. Then you go to Initiative 65A, and you wonder what that's for. Well, Initiative 65A Initiative 65 was passed by voters. A good number of people have signed a ballot that qualified them to put it on this ballot this time. The legislature, after reading and understanding this medical marijuana legislature, voted for their own under 65A. And this is, shall Mississippi establish a program to allow the medical use of marijuana products by qualified persons with debilitating medical conditions? Under 65A, it is the state that will develop a program, and the state will decide and pick who they choose to give out medical marijuana. And they will keep a process of tracking the patients who have applied for medical marijuana, and so that could become public record. In this ballot, you're given the option of voting for, and it's tricky, so please read it carefully. You're given the option of voting for both measures, saying I'll take either one, whatever works out, or you can vote for neither, or you can vote for one or the other. 165 has been filed by citizens of the state of Mississippi. 65A has been filed by our legislators. The next ballot, a very important ballot, and the league is very interested in this ballot. And, oh, before I forget, guys, here in Hattiesburg, there's going to be a public hearing on the medical malpractice legislature, October 7th. The doors open at 5. It starts at 5:30 at the Jackie Dole Sherrill Community Center. Okay, now we go to the second ballot. And this was prepared and passed by our legislators. And it wants to amend our state constitution of 1890. And what it wants to say is that this amendment provides that to be elected governor or to any other statewide office, a candidate must receive a majority of the votes in the general election. If no candidate receives a majority of the votes, meaning more than 50%, then a runoff election shall be held as provided by general law. The requirement of receiving the most votes in a majority of Mississippi House, the requirement of receiving the most votes in a majority of Mississippi House of Representatives district is removed. Let me explain this amendment. Right now, in our Constitution that was written in 1890, it says that if you have to have you have to win by popular vote, and you also have to win in the Electoral College of the House of Representatives. The legislature, recognizing that is does not benefit the citizens of Mississippi. In fact, that law was put into effect to not benefit our citizens. It was put into effect to make make sure that Black people and minority groups were not able to vote, or not able to win, were not able to be in office. It happened after the Civil War, when after the Civil War, good number of Black men were in our government. And after that, it was a wake-up call for the white framers of the Constitution in 1890, and they changed it so it was not beneficial to the citizens of Mississippi. But our legislators want to correct that. And now it is that it's written that there's going to be an election, and if there's not a majority, then there's going to be a runoff election in our state. So everyone gets a fair chance. If you have any questions on this, there are innumerable articles on the internet. And with the League of Women Voters, if you want to contact us, we're on Facebook, and we'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, the next question is, what are your rights as a voter? Anastasia, would you clarify that for us, what your rights are?
Of course, sir. Just to piggyback off of what Ms. Peggy said, I am a trained poll worker. So I would suggest that you read the ballot online or get a sample ballot from somewhere, because you only have 5 minutes at the to vote, and it'll time out on you. So please read it online at the Secretary of State, like Ms. Peggy said, or get a sample ballot out here today. So knowing your rights. Every qualified Mississippi elector is entitled to vote regardless of race, creed, color, or disability. No one may refuse a person the right to vote if that person is legally entitled to vote. No voter shall be threatened, intimidated, or paid to vote by any other person. Voters whose names do not appear on the poll book or who do not have an acceptable form of photo ID are entitled to vote by affidavit ballot. I'll say that again. Voters whose name do not appear on the poll book or who do not have an acceptable form of photo ID are entitled to vote by affidavit ballot. But you must go to the circuit clerk's office within the next day in order for to show their ID. Voters who cast an affidavit ballot are entitled to receive written information at the time of voting on how to determine if the vote was counted. If not, why not? Voters who require assistance in marking the ballot because of disability, blindness, or an inability to read or write are entitled to receive assistance from a person of the voter's choice. If you need help from us at the polls and you don't have a family member or somebody to help you, you have to initiate asking us for your help. Or you have the choice of whoever you want to help you, whether it's the person you came in there, your wife, your husband, your child, or what have you. Excluding a candidate whose name is on the ballot, or the spouse, parent, sibling, or child of a candidate whose name is on the ballot, or by a poll worker who is observing in the polling place on election day, or the voter's employer or agent of that employer, or officer or agent of the voters union, unless, however, a candidate for office or the spouse, parent, or child of a candidate is related within the first degree to the voter requesting assistance. First degree is your wife, your children, and familiar like that. So you can get help.
Okay, thank you, Anastasia. Chandra, when is the voter registration deadline for this fall?
Again, please be mindful that the voter registration deadline is this upcoming Monday, October 5th. Again, if you're going to do your by mail voter registration, make sure that stamp, that postmark is dated by October 5th. Also, if you're doing in person, please be sure that you go and do it before 12 o'clock p.m. on the 5th of October. That's this upcoming Monday.
Okay. Dr. Turner Brown, what are the procedures a voter must follow for election day in-person voting?
Well, the first thing you'll want to do is find out where your polling place is. If you don't know that, you can go to the Secretary of State's webpage, or you can go to www.vote.org, and you can put in your name, your street address, and that will help you identify your specific polling place. As Dr. Anastasia Doctor went over earlier, you must bring with you to the poll an ID. And the ID can take a number of forms. It can be a driver's license, it can be a government issued ID, it can be a US passport, a government employee identification card, a firearms license. If you're a student, you can bring your student issued ID from an accredited university. And in our community, William Carey University and the University of Southern Mississippi, as well as all the junior and community colleges in our area are on that accredited list. A US military photo ID will also serve the purpose, or any other photo ID issued by any branch, department, agency, or entity of the US or state government. Now, there is if you don't have any of those forms of ID, you can still get at no cost a Mississippi voter identification card. That can also be found, the way to get that card can also be found if you go to www.vote.org. Thank you, Dr. Wesley.
Okay. Another thing that happened during voting is disenfranchising crimes. I've had a number of voters ask, can I still vote if I've been incarcerated? So I'm asking Chandra, are there any disenfranchising crimes that would prevent you from voting?
Yeah, there are disenfranchising crimes that will prevent you from voting. I looked at an article, and according to the article by One Voice, Mississippi NAACP, and the Sentencing Project, Mississippi is currently one of 12 states where individuals who may be disenfranchised while incarcerated, under criminal justice supervision outside of prison, or permanently in most cases. And this is the list of the crimes. So you have arson, armed robbery, bigamy, robbery, embezzlement, extortion, felony bad check, felony shoplifting, forgery, larceny, murder, obtaining money or goods under false pretenses, perjury, rape, receiving stolen property, robbery, theft, timber larceny, unlawful taking of motor vehicles, statutory rape, carjacking, and larceny under lease or rental agreement.
Okay, so if a person was convicted of one of those crimes, the question is, what can they do? If you find your the crime listed there, there is something you can do, and it's called restoreyourvote.com. So in case the crime was listed there and you was convicted of it, it's not the end of the road. That is a route. So you can go to the website, restoreyourvote.com, and you can get information and assistance about getting your vote restored. Now, in the midst of this voter suppression and all, the NAACP has had a long history of addressing problems that's concerning voters. And I'm asking Mr. McGee today, as president of the NAACP, what are they doing today to promote voter participation?
In order to promote voter participation, the NAACP is reaching out in partnership with churches, other religious organizations, sororities, fraternities. I think we have sent out this year over 30 some odd letters, packages to various churches announcing voter registration, voter participation, announcing that there will be rise to the poll. We also utilize the radio stations here to make public announcements. The TV stations, packages have been sent to the TV station outlining all of the activities that the NAACP has been involved in since September, October, up and through November. So we're getting the word out there. And we're also doing door-to-door contact, leaving door hangers on those residents where we cannot contact people. Today, we have handouts that we can give out to people to assist in getting the word out. Voting is important. Our lives depend on it. Let's get involved in good trouble.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. And our partner in this, Ms. Serrato, what is the League of Women Voters doing to address voter participation?
I'm going to address that, but before I do, I want to say thank you to the NAACP for letting us be here today, for including us in the past years in helping to get out the vote and registering people. It's been invaluable, your help, and you're letting us be with you and work with you. Appreciate it. The League of Women Voters Pine Belt, recognizing there are issues with social distancing. We have 12 counties under our League of Women Voters Pine Belt, and we have members who are working with each county, contacting schools, high schools, colleges, contacting businesses, community centers to talk about online registration when they do that. That was for trying to register voters. Now that we're in this serious month of getting out the vote and getting people to the voting to vote, we're having posters as many places that people will take them for businesses. Everywhere we go, we're dropping off posters saying, get out to vote. We plan on it. We'll see what happens, but we're planning on all our counties to have little parades, 3-car parades, going down streets with signs saying, please get out to vote. And we may contact people for help, but we are doing everything we can this month on a daily basis to try to get out the vote and stay safe. Thank you.
Okay. Now, if you need additional information about voting and voter registration, Anastasia, where can this be found on the websites?
Sir, so we have Y'all Vote. Y'all Vote is strictly for Mississippi voters, but you also can go on the Secretary of State as well. You can go from your phone. So Mississippi's registered voters are required by law to report change of their address to their local circuit clerk to ensure they're voting the correct polling place. Now they can make that change online via the Mississippi Secretary of State's Y'all Vote website. Other changes that can be made online include a name change, cause of a marital status. And when we're dealing with Y'all Vote, we know that modern technology is going to streamline this process. At this point in time in Mississippi, you cannot vote online, but there's other places that you can. So again, on a Mississippi Y'all Vote, you can check your polling places, you can check your status to see if you're registered to vote, and that's very important. You can check anything that you need, all the voter ID that you would need, and everything that you would need to vote. So you have in the palm of your hand, right here in your phone, you can find out what your status is.
All right, thank you. Mr. O'Brien, Dr. O'Brien, I know there's some guidelines for voting now by paper ballots that you can start voting as of September the 21st. How does that work?
Well, you can vote by paper ballot if you are a registered voter and you are able to request an absentee ballot. We recommend you do this 7 days before the vote, at least 7 days before the voting day, November 3rd. Then you'll, in terms of, there's no specific deadline either with regard to when to mail it in. But again, it's in our best interests if we can get that done at least 7 days before the election. The voted ballots, they're due, they must be received by 5 p.m. 1 day before election day. Now, in terms of the rules, you can get an absentee ballot and fill it out paper-wise if for these following reasons. If you will be away from your county on election day for any reason. So you don't have to, if you're going to be away for any reason, you just have to make that case. A couple of examples: if you're a student, a teacher, an administrator at a school whose studies or employment there necessitate your absence from your county, or if you are a spouse or dependent thereof, or if you have a temporary or permanent physical disability that renders you unable to vote in person, or if you are a parent, spouse, or a dependent with a temporary or permanent physical disability, or if you're hospitalized in a county outside your residence, 50 miles away. Another rule is that if you are 65 years or older, you will be able to vote absentee ballot. So these are some things to keep in mind. Our state is one of the most restrictive on this type of voting, and there are currently a number of lawsuits that are in court now, even before Election Day. And our hope, because we'd like to see people get to the polls or get the opportunity to vote, is that those lawsuits continue and be adjudicated in favor of freeing up everybody to get the vote. As Vernon Damer said, if you don't vote, you don't count. Thank you, Dr. Wesley.
All right. Now, as election day are nearing, the NAACP branch, as stated by Mr. McGee, here in Forest County is actively involved in getting people to the polls. We have a number, ride to the poll number, which is 601-520-7104. So if anyone needs a ride to the poll, we will be providing that. We're also asking for volunteers to drive as well. So if one of the things that's going to make a success voter drive, voter registration, is to have volunteers to get involved. If you want to see a change in your community, then we'll need volunteers to help. But the biggest power that you have today is to vote. When you vote, you have as much power as the President of the United States. He only gets one vote. So, and one vote can change things. So do not think that your vote does not count. There is some facts that we look at that in the last election, the popular vote was won by one candidate, but the candidate that was elected was not by popular vote. And if what we call the NAACP, we call battleground states. Now, one of the things that happened is that you were elected by electoral votes. So you want to make sure that you vote. And then if you vote, the NAACP is pushing that that's not enough, that you have to reach out and encourage someone else to vote. So we can change elections by showing up at the poll and voting in the masses, and then reaching out to someone else to vote. It's very important that we do that. And the second thing I wanted to emphasize that I missed in the beginning, this panel here, the NAACP and the League of Women Voters are nonpartisan. We are not pushing any candidate today. We are pushing individuals to get out to vote. So we want to encourage you to volunteer with the League of Women Voters, to volunteer with the NAACP, to ask what can you do to help. And you can make a difference in your community by voting and encouraging others to vote. Before we wrap this up, from the panel, is there anything that you would like to add at this time?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So I
Stacey.
am a board member of Black Lives Matter Mississippi, and every event we sponsor, every event that we go to, we have voter registration, census, and we also have sample ballots. So anytime we have an event, we've been working with the NAACP president. Our president is Reginald Virgil, and our vice president is Donald Bethley, and they have made voting one of our forefront issues at this point in time. And I have to say, make sure you're voting in your local elections. Thank you.
Yes. And again, we want to encourage everyone to vote. And we still need volunteers. The success of getting out to vote is having volunteers. Get involved. Do not sit on the sidelines in this election, because it will impact your life.
I was going to add too that the NAACP will be offering people who don't have a ride to get to the polls. As Dr. Wesley pointed out, we do have a number. Dr. Wesley will read that again. I wanted to point out that we will have masks on hand. If we will social distance, we'll keep the windows open in the car if we don't have our convertibles. So please, we will keep you as safe as can be. We'll keep ourselves as safe as can be, and we will get you to the poll if you need a ride. So please, what is that number again, Dr. Wesley?
The number for the ride to the poll is 601-520-7104.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your vote is the process of implementing public policies. If we want a change in the structure of our government, we have no other way of bringing that about other than voting. So everybody needs to vote as if your life depends on it. Vote because you're not just voting for yourself, you're voting for your children and your grandchildren. This is your legacy. This is your opportunity to make it count.
And along with that, we have the ballot measure 2 that says we're doing away with the old Jim Crow laws, and we're going to have it that the citizens are electing our officials. And that all came about because of our citizens working with the legislators to get it passed. It's only because of us that happened. Let's keep it up. Let's work harder. Thank you.
Also, and lastly, for those who may have a complaint regarding voting, you can file a complaint form online through Help America Vote. It's an act. Okay, so what you do is you complete that form and you can send it by mail. You can hand deliver or also overnight deliver that complaint form to the Secretary of State's office. They have their own election division, so you make sure you get that form out to them.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more comments from the panel? If not, we would like to thank Councilwoman Del Delgado for giving us this opportunity to present the information. And we hope and pray that you will use this to reach out to other voters and participate in the election process this fall. Thank you.
All right, we're here with Ward 2 City Council member Deborah Delgado right here in downtown Hattiesburg, Ward 2. And we want to get a bit of the history of the Mobile Street Renaissance Festival, how it came to be, and the importance of it right now.
The festival started 15 years ago out of a desire to bring people back into the community and to honor the rich heritage of it. During segregation, Mobile Street was the Black business and entertainment district of Hattiesburg. And when I moved back here in the 90s, I found that it was had been pretty much abandoned. There had been no activity going on down here. And to talk to people, they had just kind of given up on the community. But it's in the area that I represent. And I wanted us to honor that heritage that we have here. The marker that was dedicated this morning is an indication of the richness of the heritage that we have of this community, because those men met in this area, when they were making their plans to go forward to try to fight for voting rights. Every year we try to leave an historic marker or something like that here on the ground in this community to let people know what was here and what it can be. So we've been doing this 15 years. We were considering not doing it because of the pandemic, but we decided to make it happen no matter what, because it was so important for us to honor those 15 men and to get information out into this community about the importance of civic engagement. Hence, we have this live stream. This evening, we're going to have something new in the community, and that is a free drive-in movie across from the African American Military History Museum on 6th Street. So we would like the public to come out, bring your lawn chairs, wear your mask, bring your own food and your beverages, your coolers, or whatever the case may be, and we will put you in a socially distanced pod where you can enjoy that movie with your family and just honor the heritage of our community and celebrate ourselves.
Now, let me get your comments on this. I did a little research online before coming down here. A lot of your district is a historic marker, or it's on the National Register. Is that right? Talk to me about that.
Some of it is. Now, we have, not only do we have the African American Military History Museum, we also have the historic Eureka School Museum. In addition to that, the Toni Morrison Society placed one of its benches by the road here, during one of these festivals. So there's a lot of history to be celebrated in addition to what these men did as well.
Yes, ma'am. So now what do we have coming up next here on our civic engagement stage?
On our civic engagement stage, next we have candidates who are seeking office, and they will tell you about their platform and what they bring forward. We invited a number of them. We invited Republicans, Democrats, and Independents. So hopefully some of them will be able to introduce themselves to the community and tell you what they are about.
Very good. You heard it right here. Councilwoman Ward 2, right here at the Mobile Street Renaissance Festival, and we'll begin our next panel discussion very soon. Councilwoman Delgado, we appreciate you and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Es bonita y es bonita y es bonita y es bonita y la gaila beso, la gaila beso, la gaila, la gaila, la gaila, es bonita y es bonita y bonita y es bonita y la gaila beso, la gaila beso, la gaila, la gaila, la gaila, es bonita y es bonita y bonita y es bonita y la gaila beso, la gaila beso, la gaila, la gaila, la gaila, es bonita y es bonita y bonita y es bonita.
And welcome back to the main stage for the 15th Annual Mobile Street Festival, the Renaissance Festival. My name is Edgar Champagne. All right, so we got a lot of stuff going on. On Mobile Street right now, they have food trucks up there. We'd love for you to come by and patronize some of the food trucks up there. A lot of things happening. We just had the unveiling of the historic marker upon East 6th and Mobile. And right now, we're going to go into our political segment. We've got on the panel with us, running for Election Commissioner District 4, Monica Miller, and Brad Parker, who is Vice Chair of the Democratic Party. So on the way, after this, we're going to have Black Lives Matter. That's going to be from 3 to 4. 4 to 5, it's Surviving with a Testimony, SWAT, with Coriana Price. And then we're going to have Ground Zero with Christopher Preston, and Why Vote with Ken Chambers. That's all coming up a little later on the main stage. And I understand, Ms. Miller, you have another commitment. You've got to leave a little early, but we want to open the microphone up to you and let you say a few words, and then we may have a question or two for you. Please.
Thank you for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here on Mobile Street and for this historic occasion, and just to let everybody know who I am and what I'm running for and what I'm standing on. Again, my name is Miller, and I'm running for Election Commissioner for District 4 here in Forest County. And I grew up in this area. My parents are Robert and Verna Miller. My dad was a deputy sheriff here. He's passed. And my mom's a retired teacher in Florist. So we all knew about just serving the community. And that's how we were raised. And that's why I'm running for this position to give back to the district. I live in the district I grew up in. So I'm excited to be back here in Hattiesburg. The election commissioner has a very important role in our society, because you are over the elections. You're making sure the voter rolls are correct. You're making sure the election sites are equipped and staffed properly, and that all the rules are followed. So I believe that I am the candidate for Forest County District 4. We've got a lot of changes in the district with a lot more apartment complexes being built. When I was growing up in the area, it was more, single family homes. And when you have apartments, you have a higher turnover of residents. So you have to really stay on top of who's in the district, making sure they're registered, making sure their information is up to date. So as election commissioner, I am strongly working on what I want to do is to make sure that the voter roll is protected by doing due diligence, making sure that those who are on the roll are accurate. There is a time that you have to purge a roll, but there is a process that has to be done. You have to try to reach out and reach to the residents, make sure if they're still here, if they've moved, or if they've passed on. And then you also have to document that with the Secretary of State. And that has not been done. And that is so crucial to the size of our district. And I also want to work with local organizations throughout the years, not just during an election year, but make it an ongoing event to make sure that we are keeping our residents registered and that we do know who's in the district. Because again, with the number of apartment complexes going up, we know there's a high turnover of residents. So we always want to make sure that we have accurate information. So as election commissioner, that is what I plan to do, to make sure, to do due diligence before purging names from the roll, and to work with the local organizations. You guys just had the NAACP up here, League of Women Voters. There are a lot of grassroots organizations that have been working tirelessly to make sure people are registered. I want to work with those organizations throughout the years, not just during the election year, but throughout the other, upcoming months, to make sure our residents are registered to vote. We just had the unveiling of this, historic marquee here because of lives. People gave their lives so that we had the right to vote. And so we want to honor that by doing our part as this generation to make sure that this District 4 is strong. Our residents are registered not only to vote, but they're also participating in the election process, and that I will do as the election commissioner.
Okay, Miss Monica Miller, how are people able to get in touch with you? And you have any programs or events coming up before the election? We got about another 30 days or so.
Right now, we're looking at to have a possible a gathering in the next 2 weeks. We have to just make sure we can do the social distancing. That is the main concern. We haven't done a lot of face-to-face contact with the general public because of COVID, but I do have a Facebook page, and I have been reaching out on social media with residents, and also, door to door. We've been door to door canvassing. We've been calling. So we will let the community know when we do have an upcoming event. We are looking at possibly kind of a picnic, or kind of a socially distanced picnic in the next couple of weeks. And I will definitely let the community know about that. But we've been, like I said, going door to door, giving out flyers, calling, and just reaching out to the community one-on-one without the major events right now.
Well, if you are elected to be commissioner for District 4, election commissioner, how will you be able to get all the information you need to be able to do that job the best of your ability? How will you gain all your knowledge and grab all your information?
There are a lot of people who've done this job before me that are still here in the community. We've got Councilwoman Delgado, who's really knowledgeable about the process and our district, even though she's a District 2, but she's in the area as well. Supervisor Rod Woolard is very knowledgeable. You've got the Secretary of State website. You've got other people. You've got attorneys like Attorney Glenda Funches. There's so many. You may not know everything, but I've surrounded myself with people who do know more than I do. And so I've tapped into their knowledge, their resources, and they are available for me. When I have questions, I can contact them. So I do have people around and who've done this position who can help me to be successful going forward.
Ms. Monica Miller, I understand you have to leave early. You have any questions or anything? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. We appreciate it. You're very eloquent, delivering your message.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Have a great day. Nice meeting you.
Okay. I knew your dad.
You did.
I did know. Okay. All right. In this political segment, also, we got Mr. Brad Parker. He's with the Democratic Committee, Vice Chairman, as a matter of fact. Brad, so what is the state of the party right now? Give us an idea how we're sitting in Forest County.
Well, that's a great question. This is actually a really exciting time for Democrats here in Forest County and in the state of Mississippi in general. A little bit later on this period, we're going to have a representative from Mike Espy's senatorial campaign, which is a campaign that we are so excited about. Secretary Espy, former Secretary of Agriculture at the federal level, so we call him Secretary Espy, is running a tremendous campaign and is a phenomenal candidate, and he has a really good shot in this race. And so we are just very, very excited to have such a strong candidate as Mike Espy and to have the campaign going so well. We had a great event here in Forest County just this past Saturday. We had great turnout for people to meet Secretary Espy and hear what he has to say, what his positions will be. Brandon Rue will speak on that more specifically when he gets here. But yeah, to answer your question, this is a really exciting time to be a Democrat here in Forest County and in the state of Mississippi. And so I'm going to go ahead and make my first pitch to those of you who are watching. If you want to get involved, this is a great time to get involved. We take, and I'm going to go right ahead and say, you can see I'm speaking to a phone with a mask on. This is a challenge. The audio is not as good as it could be. But we take safety in this time of coronavirus very seriously. And so for all that we do, some face-to-face events, we practice social distancing. We take it very seriously. Everyone's always in a mask. And we have a lot of options to get involved from the safety of your own home. So we're doing phone banking, we're doing text banking, social media activities. So there's a lot of work to be done. We've got about 30 days left before this election. And I know this gets thrown around a lot, but this really, I think, is one of the most impactful elections in a long time here in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah. If Secretary Espy is elected, we flip the Senate. We probably will flip the Senate. So the idea is, do we have any major entertainers or basketball, sports athletes or something that can come in and, I guess, give a shot in the arm to the young people? Because we learned in Atlanta that 225,000 people didn't vote in Atlanta. If they had voted, then Stacey Abrams would be the governor of Georgia,
Right.
because people sat out and everything. How do we crack that code? How do we put that puzzle together to get young people to actually do it, in your opinion?
Right. That's right. I think that's a really important point, and I'm really glad that you bring it up. I would actually say one of the really cool things about the SB campaign is that when you see him speak, he brings some of that energy himself. We actually just had a great interaction, like I said, this past Saturday, and seeing him interact with voters, the energy was there. I think, that's something I'm absolutely going to take under advisement, because I think there's also another piece for sort of outside celebrities who are interested to get involved. What I do want to say, though, is I think it's also really important to recognize some of the challenges that voters face when they try to exercise their right to vote. So we've kind of got two things going on. We may have a bit of an enthusiasm gap where we need to get people fired up, and especially young people, and see, why does this matter? Why am I going to take the time to do this? And at the same time, we also need to be working to remove the barriers that they may have to actually be able to access their right to vote. And that's why it's really great. I was thrilled to see the panel that we had up before us with folks from the NAACP and the League of Women Voters speaking about some of the programs they have to help people overcome those barriers and getting to the poll. So again, if you're watching now and you weren't before, you can contact the NAACP for a ride to the poll, for example, if you don't have a way to get to your polling place. Many voters may qualify to vote absentee, which can mean mail-in ballots, and it can also just mean early voting in person. So there's a lot of ways you can access your right to vote, and some serious challenges. It was also really great to hear our candidate for election commissioner here speak about the importance of that job, because it really is very important. For the Democratic Party's part, at the county level, have been trying to reach out to voters who have been purged from the rolls, because this is something you do hear from time to time. Are the people who've been removed from the rolls, was it done correctly? Have they actually passed on, or have they moved away? Or was it just a mistake that was made? And sometimes these mistakes do happen. And so another one of the big pitches I want to make this afternoon is, if you're planning to vote, and please do vote, it's very important. If you're planning to vote, go ahead right now this weekend and double check that you are registered. And there's a couple of different places you can go to do that. The Mississippi Secretary of State's website, honestly, I just say Google "Y'all Vote Mississippi." That's the easiest way to get there. Y'all Vote Mississippi. And you can check and just make sure that you're registered, your address is correct, and your polling place is correct, and that you know where it is, because your polling place may have changed. I mean, these are things that people may have the best of intentions, and they go to where they think their polling place is. Maybe they've got their lunch break, and that's the only time they can get away from work to go to the polls, and maybe their polling place has changed and they didn't realize. So, one of the things I will encourage folks to do is go ahead and make your plan. And part of making the plan is make sure you know where your polling place is, and make sure you haven't been purged, because most of our election commissioners are there. They're earnest. They're trying to do the best they can, and it's a big job. And sometimes these mistakes happen. So check out Y'all Vote Mississippi. Ensure that you're registered to vote. If not, Monday, October 5th, is the deadline to make sure that you get registered.
Yeah. Well, one suggestion I'd like to make, since, by the way, we're talking with Brad Parker. He's vice chair of the Democratic Party, Forest County. Mr. Parker, I would suggest that since they just got Deion Sanders for Jackson State, a lot of Jackson State alumni are here. Maybe y'all can get him to come to Hattiesburg and try to generate, so the younger people, especially sports advocates, to get up off their butt and go and vote.
I love that plan. I think we're going to get right on that.
Well, okay, let's move on though. All right, now coming up on November 3rd, it's a very, very important election. Tell us what you know about Mr. Espy so far.
Well, what I can say about Mr. Espy at this point is that, and this is one of the things that he is running on, but I'm seeing it when I interact with him. His goal is to be accessible. So he is someone who he's grown up in Mississippi. He's from the community, and he looks at some senators we've maybe have currently, maybe have had in the past, who once they get to Washington, they're gone. They've moved on and moved up, and you don't see them around anymore. And if you want to get in touch with them about something that you need, a change you think needs to be made, you can't do that. And honestly, the thing that excites me the most about Secretary Espy is that I genuinely believe he intends, when he is our senator, to be accessible to the communities that he serves. And this is something that's often lost in national politics, I think. especially once you get to that rarefied air of a senator, there's only 100 in the whole country. They're important people.
That's right.
They sometimes sort of lose that connection to where they come from, and the fact that their job is to represent us, their constituents, right? And they get a little big in the head. I honestly, and I've worked on a number of different campaigns. I've been around politicians for a long time. Obviously, I'm a politically active person. I truly believe that Secretary Espy will be different as a senator. He has insisted that we need to have face-to-face events to the extent that we can, and safety is extremely. I'm gonna let this train pass. Okay, maybe we've got a respite here. Safety is extremely important. So we take the coronavirus very seriously, and we want to keep people safe and healthy. And so we've had to get creative. But he has been pushing all the way through this campaign. Let's get creative and let's figure out how can we do this safely so I can actually interact with voters and the people that I will be representing. And to me, that is just so exciting to see in someone who's running for Senate.
Brad Parker, we're talking with him right now during the political segment. So, Mr. Parker, I look at a lot of political television, MSNBC, I look at little Fox and CNN, and a lot of times they'll take a bite from a campaign, and you'll see where a candidate said, "Dear sir, we enjoy looking at you talk. We enjoy your message. We believe in you. This is all we have. We were able to send you $8 or $10. Sure. So now, for people out there for the people out there who may not believe that $8 or $10 matters, it does. Absolutely. If people are watching this particular feed, this stream, and they wanted to donate, how can they donate to help the Democrats in Forest County and Mr. Espy and everybody else?
Sure, absolutely. That's a wonderful question. I'm glad you bring it up. The unfortunate reality is money matters in politics. So what I would encourage everyone to do, if you're watching now and you want to get involved with your time or you want to make a donation, you can find the Forest County Democratic Party on Facebook. So Forest Dems, find us on Facebook, and we'll have all that information there. If you want to vote, if you want your money to go directly to Espy's campaign, we can direct you there. And if you want to support the county party, because I'm going to be honest, I didn't realize this until I got involved with the party at the county level, how much groundwork and legwork happens with these county parties. And we're all volunteer, so it's mostly just our time. But there are things that come along where money is really helpful to us. And so I would absolutely say, find us on Facebook, Forest County Dems or Forest Dems, and we'll have all that information there. And if you do want to get involved by donating some money and I don't have $150 I can throw at this right now, that's fine. Every little bit helps. And especially when we're talking about county level politics, $10 right now to us, the county party, we would be thrilled. If someone found us on Facebook, and we'll have an Act Blue page set up where they can donate electronically. And if we got a $10 donation, we would be very thrilled to get that. And we can make it work. Your dollar goes a long way, especially to your county party. And it's because, again, right now we're talking about not yet Senator, the candidate, Espy, who's running for Mississippi Senator, to be a senator from Mississippi. But we also, as the county party, support all of our Democratic candidates for all kinds of different elected positions. And so find us on Facebook, Forest Dems, Forest County Dems, and we would love to have your support.
Well, okay, now if a person can't donate, I watched a guy on television named John Tesh, and he's got a radio show. I'm a radio announcer myself. And I saw John Tesh live, and he said that one stat that people don't realize, if you volunteer, you can add 2 years to your life. So you should volunteer as often as you can.
Absolutely.
Now, on election day, we need people to be out there with your signs and waving and everything else. How can they get in touch with you all to volunteer?
Again, I'm going to say the exact same thing. I'm going to direct you to the Forest County Facebook page. We're going to have all that kind of information available. And actually, I'm really glad that you bring up election day, because another role that we have for people that does need to be filled, that's not directly through our county party, but we also need poll workers. And this is not just a Forest County thing. It's not just a Mississippi thing. So to anyone watching, this is relevant to you. If you have the ability, many counties need people to actually show up and work on election day, the people who make sure that the election actually runs, completely nonpartisan. And it's incredibly important to the functioning of our democracy. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And there's one other thing I just want to throw out there. We as a county party, really want to be a resource for voters. And so on election day, and even leading up to election day, there's a number of different things we want to do to help support our voters. One of those things is if you are voting absentee and you need your ballot to be, help me with this, stamped.
Certified?
Notarized. There we go, notarized. I lost the word for a second. So if you're voting absentee and you need your ballot to be notarized, that can be a little bit of a challenge. There's usually a cost associated. You have to go to a notary, make an appointment, and that sort of thing. If that would be a challenge for you, the Forest County Democratic Party, some of our people have just volunteered to become notaries themselves. And so I'm going to share a phone number that you can call if you're someone who's voting by mail and you need your ballot to be notarized. You can call us and we will come. One of our notaries will come to you and will notarize your ballot for you.
It's a great service.
For no cost. That's right. So let me pull it up here on my phone.
That's a great service. Absolutely free. And notaries normally in Georgia, I'm living in Georgia. Normally it's anywhere from $3 to $10 to get something notarized. And so if they're going to put their gas in their car and drive to you to notarize your absentee ballot, that's a great service from the Forest County Democratic Party. That's that number, sir.
Yeah, so that number is, if you need to take advantage of that, 601-651-3367. So again, that's 601-651-3367, which you may notice is 651 DEMS. So 651 DEMS. Go ahead and give us a call. And if you hear me say this and you forget, again, go ahead and just find us on Facebook because we're going to be sharing that information there as well.
As promised, ladies and gentlemen, Brad Parker promised that Mr. Rue would be here, and he's made it to the stage. Mr. Rue, welcome to the committee. Say a few words for us.
Good afternoon, everyone. A few minutes behind. Sorry about that, but I am Brandon Rue. I'm the regional field director for the Democratic Coordinator campaign, which we work very closely with the Mike Espy campaign. I'm super excited about this election. We're just 1 point down right now, and so we're super excited about the progress that we are able to make here in Mississippi. But the work is not done yet. We know that polls sometimes can be misleading. So, and polls don't mean anything unless people get out to vote. So my call to action today is just make sure that we do what we got to do to get people out to vote and actually vote. Because we can be 1 point down right now, but if those people that were polled don't make it to the ballot box, it means nothing. So I'm excited to be here, and I'll answer any questions and talk about anything that you want while you have time.
Okay, so one question came up, and I think we were asking Mr. Parker this. Do you have a slight chance of getting Mr. Espy back into Hattiesburg right before the election, anytime between now and November 3rd? Is it possible?
Well, I can't make any promises, of course, because the campaign is a very structured machine, so I can't make any promises. But we are in a process of planning an event, the Forest County Democrats are planning an event that would entice Secretary Espy to come back down to Hattiesburg. Now, I can't confirm or deny that he will be here, but we're going to do everything in our power to reach out and to get his campaign down here. He was here this past weekend at Vernon Damon Park. We had a great turnout there. Got a lot of people excited. But this time we want to bring him into the neighborhoods and actually take him to the people instead of expecting the people to come to him. So we are putting together an event, a proposal to send over to the campaign to try to get him back down here GLTV weekend so that we can take him to the people.
I don't particularly know. I haven't had a chance to look at the Mike Espy website. Are you really familiar with the platform pretty much?
I would say I'm pretty familiar with it.
Well, so
I can't know how many two.
Just pick one or two. This is a multiple choice. And what would you say is more important, or he's more concerned with? Is it Black Lives Matter or crime or voter suppression? Which one would be a thing that he talks about a lot?
The one thing that I would say that Secretary Espy mentions the most when I hear him talk is he says he wants to be the senator that brings healthcare to Mississippi. He wants Thad Cochran for he goes down the list and tell you what other senators were known for bringing to Mississippi, and then he goes on to say that he wants to be the senator that brings healthcare to Mississippi. So many of our rural hospitals have closed. So many people in our communities are suffering because they can't receive proper medical care. So Mike Espy wants to be the senator that brings affordable health care to our state. Other states have done it, not just blue states. You have red states like Oklahoma and other states like that who have expanded Medicaid, and Mike Espy wants to be the senator that bring that here in Mississippi. So if I had to tell you one of the most important things that's on his radar, it'll be bringing health care to Mississippi.
Brandon Rue is our guest right now with Brad Parker there from the Democratic Party here in Forest County. You about to say something?
I was, yeah. I just wanted to jump in because I love that question. And so what I want to speak to, and what really, one of the things that gets me really excited about SB as a candidate is his approach to education and his understanding of the value of education. So by trade, I am an educator. I work in public education, and I love it. And I think it's incredibly important. And it is really frustrating when being in that world, sometimes I see that resources just are not available to serve our students as well as we should be able to serve them. And, you know, in this moment that we are in nationally, our current Secretary of Education has gotten a lot of headlines and has made a lot of news for her views on education and how things need to change. And one of the things that gets me really excited about SB as a candidate is his understanding of the importance of education and how disparities in educational opportunities really hold students back. And we see that in Mississippi. And I am really excited to have the opportunity to work with a candidate for U.S. Senate who could find himself, and hopefully will in about 30 days, in a very powerful position to move the needle on that and really improve education for our students here in Mississippi and all across the country.
We're talking with Brandon and Brad and Brandon. Have you all picked out an apartment in DC? Because he's going. Have you all got your apartments ready?
Not gonna lie, I'm thinking ahead like, what if? You know, what if Secretary SB wins this race and makes it to DC? And I'm excited about the opportunity. You know, I was just talking with Brad this morning about it. When Secretary SB wins this race in 30 days and makes it to DC as our next United States Senator, that's our time to strike. You know, we have 6 years here in Mississippi to really show the rest of the country that we matter, that we're valuable, and that our elections are important. And then during those 6 years, we have to strike while the iron is hot. You know, and so I'm not going to be in a rush to move to DC with Secretary SB and work for him, because I'm going to be busy here bringing up Mississippi, building us back up, because that's what's going to be important. And during those 6 years, that's going to be the most important time for us to put this state back to where it needs to be.
Well, what is the plan for the Democratic Party here in Forrest County in case we have inclement weather, if it's raining or a storm? In Georgia, I've seen people at our polls, some of our elections, where people will come out there and they have a couple of tents, and they got donuts, umbrellas, they got gloves, they got all kind of different things, just like cheerleaders trying to get the people not to step out of line, to go home. What is the plan in case we have bad weather for you all to get people to stay and vote?
There is no stone that's going to be unturned for this election. We are going to do everything in our power to make sure that people can vote easily through any kind of weather. We're going to try to get vans available. We're going to try to get cars. We're going to have umbrellas at the polls. We're going to try our best to recruit as many volunteers and as many people as we can to serve at the polls, so that we can know what's going on, and then having people out in the community giving people's rides, making sure we have umbrellas so that people can wait in line, making sure that we have boxes of pieces of donuts. That, like, we're going to do whatever in our physical power to make sure that every vote is counted and that we elect Mike Espy as our next United States Senator.
And just to jump in on that a little bit as well, we were speaking earlier about donating money. And so this is another one of those things where even a small donation to the county party can be really, really dramatically important, because that kind of thing, it may come from a Senate's candidate or Senate's campaign, senators, you know what I'm trying to say, from SB's campaign. But that's traditionally, that would be the kind of thing the county party would take care of. And so if we as the Forrest County Democrats are going to be able to have the ability to do that, I mean, these things cost money. And so most of the way we operate right now is the people who are here and volunteering and working, we just buy something when it needs to be bought. And so, you know, I can buy a tent and I can buy umbrellas and cases of water, and that's what we've been doing. But that's one of those things where if someone wants to get involved, and especially if they're the kind of person who wants to be involved, and really this is a historic moment for Mississippi right now. I mean, this campaign that we have is really something special. And so if you're someone who wants to get involved, but you don't feel comfortable going out and knocking on doors, you don't feel comfortable being a poll watcher or being a poll worker, but you know you want to support one way or another, even a small donation to the county party right now would be tremendously helpful, so that we can go ahead and get those resources, so that people, again, if we have inclement weather, whatever the case might be, can access their right to vote. And that's really, I think that's kind of the theme that's evolving as I'm talking up here for myself, is what we want to do as a county party is help people access their right to vote. And so those resources, if people do have a few dollars to throw our way to help us do that, would make a huge difference.
We're talking with Brandon Rue and Brad Parker. So Brandon, you're the president, you're the vice president. I want both of y'all to answer this question. All right, so we know that women are 80% of the women just vote more than men. They really, really do. There are some guys out there that'll just sit around and won't vote. What do you say to that person about the importance of this election this year?
Man, this election couldn't be any more important. We've seen what Trump has done these past 4 years. And I don't want to make this race about Trump because Mike Espy is not running for president of the United States. He's running for the United States Senate. But in order to keep control of a president, whether it's Trump or any other president for that matter, they have to have a strong Senate. And there are so many issues that go through the Senate that people don't really understand. And so I say that this election is the most important election of our lifetime because everything is on the table, you know, like from minimum wage, like people who complain about minimum wage, people complain about things like that kind of stuff gets settled with politicians in the Senate. You know, so much of our everyday lives is dictated by politicians, and we always complain about the system not being in our favor and things not going the way that it needs to go, but we still don't vote at a high enough number. So what I say to those people who don't vote is give it a chance this year. Give it a shot this year. We always complain about how voting doesn't work for us, but I believe voting doesn't work for us because we haven't voted. Mississippi has one of the highest African-American populations in the entire country. And you mean to tell me we haven't had a black United States senator or a statewide official at all since Reconstruction? And so and we're the state with the highest African-American population. I don't understand that. And so what that means to me is we're not voting enough. And so before you complain about our vote not working, you got to actually vote. So I say this time around, give it a shot. Get out, vote for a guy like Mike Espy, a guy who's going to be in your communities, a guy who's going to hold town halls. He's already pledged to hold 2 town halls through the quarter and while he's in office. And so vote for a guy like Mike Espy who's going to listen, who's going to fight for the things that we care about, fight for our minimum wage, fight for a living healthcare, like a living wage, fight for healthcare, all those things. So before you give up on the system, participate in it and show them and use your voice to actually make that change instead of just sitting back and saying it won't work. Give it a try and let's see how well it actually does work.
Okay, so now, Brad, I'm going to put you on the spot. My job is similar to yours because I am in radio and I have to go into different places. And sometimes I go into an all Caucasian audience and I've got to sit there and become a chameleon. You're working in a place, he just said, we got more black voters than anybody else. So how do you talk to the black guy and tell him the importance of voting?
Sure. Well, that's a really interesting question. And I guess what I would have to say is I'm talking to another person. We're talking person to person. And I'm telling you, this is why I think it's really important that you get out there and vote. And I know it's been brought up multiple times today, but I don't think you can really overstate the importance of voting. And it really does just boil down to that famous phrase here in Hattiesburg from Mr. Damer: if you don't vote, you don't count. And it's that phrase has such longevity because it is so true. And the vote is so important. And as has already been mentioned, a lot of people have sacrificed a lot, more than they should ever have had to make sure that we all have access to that right to vote, that we all truly have. So I guess when I approach people, I'm just trying to meet them where they're at, and I can make my pitch as best I can. But it's person to person. We're all people here, and it matters for you, and it matters for me, and I'm really committed to and invested in this community, even though I'm not from here. As we were speaking before we got up here on stage, I'm not originally from here, but this Hattiesburg is a great community, and I'm really invested in it. And I try to, I guess, just bring that when I'm talking to voters here.
Okay, our guest right now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mom and dad at home, is Brandon Rue, president of the Democratic Party, Forrest County, and Brad Parker, vice president. We got about 6 minutes left in this segment, so I'd like for you all to take about 3 minutes each and talk about Election Day. I mean, rides, phone numbers, whatever you can mention about Election Day, November 3rd for Forrest County.
Absolutely. So Election Day, as we know it, is November 3rd. it cannot be any more important for us to get up and get out to vote. Election day for me is like a holiday. You know, I'm excited. I wake up like a kid on Christmas morning because that's just how excited I am. But I know everybody doesn't share that excitement. But things that we want to be doing as the party and are to provide rides for the polls. If you need a ride to the poll, you can let us know that now, and we will plan ahead. But if you need rides to the poll, contact us on Facebook. We'll be putting out flyers with names and numbers on it so that we can get you in contact with the right people. But do not, regardless of whatever is going on, please do not miss this opportunity to shape our future. We will provide every resource available to make sure that you can get to the polls, whether it's driving you to the polls, whether it's finding your polling location, whatever you need to do. And I just want to mention that Monday is the voter registration deadline if you want to vote in the November 3rd elections. So if you are not registered to vote, please email forrestdems@gmail.com and let us know that you need to get registered to vote. And I promise you, we will get somebody to you today, tomorrow, or before Monday to get your voter registration in so that you can be registered to vote. It is so important that you're registered to vote and that you fulfill your right to vote. So please, anybody who's listening, I don't care what city you're in, we have people across this state. If you are not registered to vote, please email forrestdems@gmail.com and we will be sure to make sure that you're registered to vote before Monday's deadline.
That's right. Yeah. And I mean, I'm going to end up just echoing a lot of what Brandon has said, but I'm going to start by saying it is so crucial to be registered for this election. And I know I've said it before, and I know it's really cliche, but this election, this opportunity we have right now with Mike Espy running for Senate and the shot that he has at winning this thing is really not something we want people to miss. This is really, it could very well end up being a once in a lifetime opportunity and moment. And Brandon and I.
Let me ask you this. Is it almost like in football, let's say, for example, in overtime, if somebody goes down and does a field goal, but you get the kickoff, if you score and make a touchdown, you win. Is it that close?
It is. And it's that significant as well. So for all that this race is really close, and Brandon and I were talking about this earlier today, the significance of what it would mean for the state of Mississippi if Mike Espy wins, and I don't even like the word wins, if we elect him, because it's not, this is not a game of chance. This is, if we want him to win, we have to elect him. And the way we do that is we vote. So.
And I want to just add something else. I'm glad you brought the football analogy, Jen, because I'm a football person, and to provide a sense of urgency, this is your favorite team down at the 1 yard line. It's 4th and 1. And it's 3 seconds left in the ball game. The clock is stopped. You got a timeout, and it's one. You got 1 yard to get it in, and you're down by 3. If we get this yard, we're in. We win. If we don't push forward, we lose, and we may not ever get this shot back again. And so the sense of urgency that I want to put on everyone is the polls say we're 1 point down, but we cannot stop there. We're not in the end zone yet. We have to tell our friends. We have to tell our neighbors. We have to tell our church members. We have to tell anybody who will listen to us that we have to vote this time. We're on the 1 yard line, but we have to get that yard. If we don't get that yard, we still lose the game. People are not going to say, remember when Mississippi was this close. People are going to say, remember when Mississippi won. So let's push forward. Let's get that 1 yard and let our team win. And for the next 6 years, we'll build this state up to where it needs to be.
That's right. And just the last push and ask I'm going to make this afternoon, because I know we're running out of time, is, again, this is not a game of chance. This is not a spectator sport. And I have been thrilled in talking to voters over this fall at how many say, yep, I'm voting for Espy. I'm excited about him. I've got my plan. I know I'm registered. And I love that. But it also makes me nervous because it makes me feel like I'm not talking to the right people, because I know not everyone can say that. And so my last pitch I'm going to make is, if you are excited about this and if you understand the significance of this, please reach out today, because October 5th is the deadline. Think of 10 people in your mind and just ask them. They could be friends, they could be neighbors, they could be colleagues, family members, but please do reach out today and just say, hey, are you registered to vote? Double check, make sure you didn't get purged. Go to Y'all Vote Mississippi, double check that you're registered, because it's not a spectator sport and it's not a game of chance. If we want to win this, if we want Espy to win, if we want to have the kind of representation he'll bring, we have to do it. We have to elect him by voting.
I like that. I like that. Check with 10. I'm going to do that in Georgia. I'll go back. Beautiful job. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to just about do it for the political segment of the 15th Annual Renaissance Festival for Mobile Street. Coming up next, we're going to have Living Tobacco Free with Denisha O'Quinn. That's on the way in just a little bit. We'll take a short break and come right back Stay with us.
Y'all ready to hear some real music? Some real music. 1, 2, 3, 4. Big shot. Big shot. 1, 2, 3, 4. off here.
A woman that's going to try to help us save our lives. She's going to talk about living tobacco-free. On the way, we got Black Lives Matters, surviving with a testimony, Ground Zero, and why vote. It's all on the way. Without further ado, though, talking about tobacco-free, Denoshe O'Quinn. Ms. O'Quinn, welcome in.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to have you guys with us on today. So my name is Denoshe O'Quinn, and I'm with the Mississippi Tobacco Free Coalition for Forest, Jones, and Perry counties. I'm here representing Caffey and Associates Public Health Foundation. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with you all about living tobacco free. And that's always good. Okay, so we know that knowledge is power. When we are greatly informed, we can make better decisions. Living tobacco free. So to talk about living tobacco free, I would say that we first would have to know what tobacco is, health effects of tobacco, and even in the time that we're living in the midst of this pandemic, tobacco and COVID-19. So let's get down with the tobacco 101. What is tobacco? Would you ask? Tobacco is a plant grown for its leaves, which are smoked, chewed, or sniffed for a variety of effects. It is considered an addictive substance because it contains the chemical nicotine. And while we're there, when we think tobacco, we're automatically thinking cigarettes, right? Okay. Cigarette smoke contains more than 7,000 chemicals and compounds. Hundreds are toxic, and at least 69 cause cancer. Tobacco smoke itself is known as a human carcinogen. Tobacco has many forms. Many forms of tobacco are cigarettes, cigars, little cigars, cigarillos, dissolvable products, electronic cigarettes, traditional smokeless tobacco products, and water pipes. So to go on, we recently discussed that tobacco has about 69 chemicals that cause cancer. Some of those chemicals are that cause cancer are formaldehyde, which we know is used to embalm bodies, benzene, which is found in gasoline, polonium-210, which is radioactive and toxic, vinyl chloride, which is used to make pipes. Tobacco is the leading preventable cause of death in the world. It causes 1 in 10 deaths among adults worldwide. Toxic metals that are found in tobacco: chromium, which is used to make steel, arsenic, which is used in pesticides, lead, which is once used in paint. Did you guys know that? Probably not. Let's continue further. Poisonous gases that are found in tobacco: carbon monoxide, which is found in car exhaust, hydrogen cyanide, which is used in chemical weapons, ammonia, which is used in household cleaners, butane, which is used in lighter fluid. Also, we know that tobacco is filled with nicotine. We know that nicotine is more addictive than cocaine and heroin. It's toxic if it's ingested in high doses. Also in tobacco, it's carbon monoxide. Don't worry, we're almost there. The compound in car exhaust that causes death. It causes shortness of breath. It reduces the amount of oxygen that the blood carries. Carbon monoxide is colorless, odorless, tasteless, and non-irritating. Also, tar, sticky residue that stains the fingers, the teeth, and the lungs. Contains benzopyrene, one of the deadliest cancer-causing agents known. It contains tar, exposes users to an increase of lung cancer, emphysema, bronchial disorders. Street names for tobacco: cigarettes, smokes, buds, cigs. Smokeless tobacco is chew, dip, spit tobacco, snuff. To go on. So we're still talking about the things that are in tobacco and its causes. Let's discuss the short-term effects. It causes an increase in your blood pressure, increase in the heart rate, increase the flow of blood from the heart, increase the effect of irritants of any standing allergies, increase in acid in the stomach. Long-term effects: chronic lung disease, coronary heart disease, stroke, cancer of the lungs, larynx, esophagus, mouth, and bladder. And as me, I'm looking forward to living a long, healthy life. So let's work at doing things that would encourage us to go on further. Smokeless tobacco. Smokeless tobacco, also called big tobacco, as we discussed briefly earlier, chew, chaw, and dip. It comes in two forms: snuff and chewing. Snuff is a fine grain tobacco that often comes in tea bag-like pouches. Users pinch or dip between their lower lip and gum. Chewing tobacco comes in shredded, twisted, or brick tobacco leaves that users put between the cheek and gum. Consequences of smokeless tobacco: cracking and bleeding lips and gums, receding gums, increased heart rate and blood pressure, and cancer. Also, other forms of tobacco: vaping. Vaping. What is vaping? You would say the act of inhaling aerosol liquid from a device. The device is filled with vape liquid. It heats up. The liquid is aerosol into millions of tiny droplets and then inhaled. What are vaping devices? They are battery-operated devices that resemble traditional cigarettes. They operate similarly, and they have that similar component. They can be rechargeable e-cigarette devices or disposable. And so since we're there with the vaping, let's put a pin there. And we're going to talk about the Juul. The Juul is an e-cigarette device, and it's also filled with nicotine. The Juul is important because many of you have youth who are in middle and high school. In middle and high school, the e-cigarette use of the Juul has been known to be an epidemic, meaning that they use it a lot. Okay, so what is the Juul? The Juul is a US e-cigarette device that looks similar to a USB drive. A USB drive, basically a memory device. They can get different skins to cover those devices. And one Juul pod that connects to that Juul, it consists of the amount of nicotine that's in one pack of cigarettes. And that's very important because that is a lot of nicotine to be ingested by our youth, and it hinders their brain development. So let's just put that pin there and keep that in mind, and to be mindful of these things that are targeting our youth. Especially the use of that Juul. If you're a teacher or you have youth at home, let's be mindful of that. So we're moving on. As far as the e-cigarette devices, what comes with it is the liquid and the vapor, and e-juice is what is called, that's filled with nicotine. So what is secondhand smoke? Secondhand smoke is another form issue surrounding tobacco. Secondhand smoke, also known as environmental tobacco smoke or passive smoke, is a mixture of two forms of smoking burning products. It's side stream smoke and mainstream smoke. Side stream smoke is smoke that comes from the end of a lighted cigarette, pipe, or cigar. Mainstream smoke is smoke that is exhaled by a smoker. There are consequences to secondhand smoke. There are consequences to the smoker, but there are also consequences to those who surround the smoke. Secondhand smoke is the third leading cause of preventative death in the United States. There is no safe level of exposure. Again, let's put a pin there with secondhand smoke. Going into the next room does not separate smokers from those who are being contacted by the smoke. Smoke travels through air vents and air ducts. Smoke travels through wall plugs, through electricity outlets. And by turning on the fan, you cannot get rid of secondhand smoke. They are still in danger. There are consequences to secondhand smoke, as I recently stated. Heart disease, lung cancer, sudden infant death syndrome, low birth weight, frequent and more severe asthma attacks, bronchitis, and pneumonia, increased risk for ear infections, increased risk of cervical cancer. Children in secondhand smoke, as we were stating earlier about you can't turn the fan on and get rid of the smoke, and different things pertaining to secondhand smoke. Children who are exposed to secondhand smoke have been found to be sick more often. 38% of children aged 2 months to 5 years are exposed to secondhand smoke in the home. Up to 2 million ear infections each year. Nearly 530,000 doctor visits for asthma, up to 436,000 episodes of bronchitis in children under 5. When considering secondhand smoke, I would say consider those who are most vulnerable. Consider those who can't speak up for themselves. Consider your health. Consider your family's health. Consider your neighbor's health. Pregnancy and secondhand smoke, we still have those consequences that affect others, not only ourselves. For pregnancy, pregnant women, miscarriage, preterm delivery, prematurity, low birth weight, sudden infant death syndrome. But you know, we've talked about tobacco. We've talked about the dangers of tobacco, the different dangers of secondhand smoke. But let's talk about the benefits of quitting. Let's go on. Here's the good part. Within 20 minutes, if you quit smoking, blood pressure drops to normal. Your pulse rate returns to normal. Body temperature of hands and feet increases to normal. Within 8 hours, carbon monoxide level in blood drops to normal. Oxygen level in blood increases to normal. Smoke's breath disappears. That's always great. Instead of spending time buying all the mint off the shelves, your smoker's breath can disappear. Within 24 hours, your chance of a heart attack decreases. Benefits of quitting: within 48 hours, your nerve endings start to regrow. Your ability to smell and taste is enhanced. Within 72 hours, bronchial tubes relax, making it easier to breathe. Lung capacity increases, making it easier to do physical activities. I don't know about you, but I like being able to move around, try to run here and there. So within 2 weeks, circulation improves. Walking becomes easier. Benefits of quitting: we're going to get down to 1 to 9 months. Coughing, sinus congestion, fatigue, shortness of breath decrease. Energy level increases. Within 1 year, the risk of the coronary heart disease is half that of a smoker. We're getting better and better. Within 2 years, the heart attack risk drops to near normal. Within 5 years, the stroke risk is reduced. Ways to reduce tobacco use. This could be in the home or wherever we choose, but ways to reduce tobacco use. Implement policies restricting tobacco use. And while we're there, let's bear in mind that secondhand smoke policies, they are not to bind and restrict, but simply to ask us to consider our neighbors and potentially step outside. Ways to reduce tobacco use: continued implement smoke-free rules in your home. Encourage loved ones to contact the quit line or doctor for help. Create a personalized quit plan. We have resources to quit, different resources to quit. The ACT Center, ACT Center, Act to Quit. The Mississippi Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW. Again, that's 1-800-QUIT-NOW. Those are resources. And with the Tobacco Quit Line, the 1-800-QUIT-NOW is a great resource for those who are interested in quitting smoking. You can call that number. They're willing to give you counseling, as well as nicotine gum or nicotine patches to try for free. So that's a great resource that we have. And just continuing on further, we're going to discuss tobacco-free and COVID-19. And this is something all of us know a little bit of something about. So we'll just be brief. What is COVID-19? It's mostly referred to as the coronavirus. It's an illness caused by a virus. Symptoms range from mild or no symptoms at all to severe. COVID-19 has many people feeling stressed, alone, or worried about their health. It's a lot to deal with if you're trying to stop smoking or stay smoke-free, if you're used to smoke during this time. Symptoms of COVID-19, they may appear 2 to 14 days after exposure to the virus. People with these symptoms may have COVID-19, a fever or chills, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headache, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion or runny nose, nausea or vomiting, diarrhea. You should look for emergency warning signs for COVID-19, especially during this time, and especially if we are a smoker, have been exposed to secondhand smoke, or know someone who's smoking, because it's important. Our lung use and functions are greatly important during these times. How is COVID-19 spread? Person to person, coming into close contact with others, droplets from coughing, sneezing, or talking, touching a contaminated surface, then touching your mouth, nose, or eyes. So let's be careful of that. Let's be mindful of that. At-risk populations, based on currently available information and clinical expertise. Older adults and people of any age who have serious underlying medical conditions might be at higher risk for severe illness from COVID-19. And so let's be mindful of even of those as we're taking part in these different things. So We're moving on along. There's a difference between smoking and vaping, and that's kind of what we hit on a little bit earlier, but we're going to touch it again as it relates to COVID-19. What is smoking in simple words? Smoking is the act of inhaling and exhaling the fumes of burning plant material. A variety of plant materials are smoked, including marijuana and hashish, but the act of most commonly associated with tobacco as smoked in cigarette, cigar, or pipe. What is vaping in simple words? The act of inhaling aerosol liquid from a device. The device is filled with vape liquid. It heats up. The liquid is aerosoled into millions of tiny droplets and then inhaled. And this is very important, even in knowing what vaping is, especially how it relates to the Juul and students in school and the sharing of that device. Smoking and COVID-19. How does this affect the tobacco smoker? The smoker may be more vulnerable to contract COVID-19. The body's ability to fight off infection is lowered, easily becomes sick, and takes longer to heal. The smoker has a higher risk of developing severe outcomes and even death. And we're going on along. Vaping and COVID-19. So far, there's none to very minimal research, but the vaping device users may be more vulnerable to contracting COVID-19 due to hand-mouth action. So, as I just previously stated, although we do not currently have any research that proves there's a link between vaping and the novel coronavirus, it should be noted that given that the COVID-19 virus affects the respiratory tract, the hand-to-mouth action of e-cigarette use may increase the risk of infection. So that's very important to be mindful of. And just a new, just a nugget, just a drop here. Nicotine cannot help fight COVID-19. So let's be careful that we're not spreading that untruth that nicotine helps fight COVID-19. General protection guidelines for COVID-19. Just to put that here. Stay home. Avoid unnecessary close contact with others. Wear a cloth face covering. Clean and disinfect frequently. Proper hand washing hygiene and the use of alcohol, hand-based sanitizer, 60% or higher. Social distancing guidelines for COVID-19. I'm sure you all are familiar with this already, but it's good that we stay mindful of these things, and we constantly have these things before us. It's not a time that we get lax. Complete day-to-day tasks online when possible. Maintain at least 6 feet distance between individuals. Utilize delivery services as much as possible. Preventing the spread of COVID-19. Stay home if you're sick. Avoid public transportation. Separate yourself from others in your home. Seek medical care. Call ahead if possible. Protecting from COVID-19 when smoking or vaping. Quitting smoking or vaping is one of the leading protections from contracting COVID-19 when smoking or vaping. We eliminate secondhand smoke exposure. Eliminate sharing cigarettes or other tobacco devices. Do not spit in public places. Inform others about risk of tobacco use. Given the risk to health that tobacco use causes, who recommends quitting tobacco use? Quitting will help your lungs and heart to work better from the moment you stop. From the moment you stop, your body begins to heal. And so, it's a good time to quit. Learn about nicotine withdrawal. Try FDA-approved smoking medications. Manage stress. Be mindful of mood and behavioral changes. There has never been a better time to quit than now, than today. And again, it's a good time to quit. Don't give up. Educate self on secondhand smoke. Make some free rules at home. Focus on things that you can control. Don't give up. If you had a slip or started smoking again because COVID-19 is stressing you out, set a new quit date and try again. Don't give up. Keep trying. We never fail until we stop trying. Learn about secondhand smoke and smoke-free rules at home. Focus on things that you can control. COVID-19 has created a lot of uncertainty. Try to focus on what you can control right now instead of getting caught up and worrying about what's next. Quit smoking tips. Create a personalized quit plan. As we discussed earlier, download a smoke-free app. Talk to a quit coach. And so far, that's the information that I have for you today concerning living smoke free. So let's be mindful of that, and let's just go back through it again. Secondhand smoke is the leading cause of preventative death in the United States. Let's be mindful of that we can prevent. Let's be mindful of our family members, ourselves, our neighbors, and our own health, and even those young children, young students who can't speak up for themselves in the school system and even in our homes. Let's be mindful of our youth and the Juul device that's targeting our youth, which again, as we stated, the Juul pods are filled with the nicotine, which is the same amount of nicotine that's in a 1 pack of cigarettes, 22 cigarettes. And let's just be mindful of all those things, and let's take what we've received today and work at living a tobacco-free life, because it can be achieved. You can do it. And that's all I have for you guys today. And I'm going to turn it back over into the hands of our host. Thank you.